Hi and welcome to another narration, presented by yours truly, Cryptids Roost. Please be so kind as to throat punch the like button and smack the arse of the subscription button as well. And remember to chokehold that notification bell and then select all. That way you'll receive all notifications each time I upload a new video. Quick note. According to my analytics, only 21% of my subscribers have turned on the all notifications for the channel. With that in mind, only 12% of my subscribers have turned on the all notifications and have enabled YouTube notifications for the channel. So if you haven't been receiving any notifications, this may be why. So be sure to double check your notification bell settings. I would like to reach out and say a huge thank you to those of you who have been supporting Cryptids Roost financially with your sponsorship. We pray the good Lord replenishes you abundantly, and to those of you who will, later on. We pray the good Lord bless you as you do so. And also a huge thank you to everyone for always supporting the channel with your likes, comments and shares as well. It is all very much appreciated. God bless you all. During every video, you should see an info card pop up at some point during the duration of the video. Each of these info cards, top right corner, will direct you to the playlist for the author of this story and will show you other stories from this same author that you may also enjoy. Also, be sure to check out the end screen at the end of the video. This will also direct you to two videos. One will be the most recent video uploaded, and the other will be a random video from within my catalogue of stories that I have already narrated. So be sure to check those out. And why not hashtag Cryptids Roost in your comments. So grab your coffee, sit back and enjoy the show. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not. In the span of 20 years, I died twice. Part 7. The Corridor to Elsewhere. This awesome series is written by the Shady Pair, a wonderful author over on Reddit. And if you would like to read more of her works, the Reddit link to her profile will be below in the description. The Central Orchard was my favourite place, and I found myself there for most of the free time I had. An ancient tower reaching into the sky in the middle of the city, though its ruins had long been repurposed. I counted 22 floors going up from the ground level before the building ended, and you could see the jagged edge where the original architecture halted and switched into a newer, slightly different shade of bricks. Like an old scar that closed into the glass ceiling above and shielded the upper greenhouse. That's the closest thing to a skyscraper we had, even though with the way it was repaired, it doesn't go nearly as high as it should. So I wondered, it must have been gargantuan when it was whole, if it ever was. The plants in the orchard were still strange, faded like pictures eroded by time, and unlike anything you'd know. Most of them didn't even have names. But it was very pretty anyway, and quiet. There were vines growing in the walls, with leaves of a dark, almost blue-green, and little berries sprouting, a deep, shiny purplish red. Those were the only strong spots of colour in sight. You could almost expect them to be grapes, but they tasted closer to cherries. I'm not ashamed to say I cried a little the first time I ate some. Actual food after so long. Almost poppy tea doesn't count. Walking past those, ivy creeping into arches led to brick pathways surrounded by assorted vegetables, bushes and saplings and endless rows of trees, and following them you'd reach a circular spot containing a single Yggdrasil tree, pure white and taller than all the others. It grew past the upper floors, a canopy of bare branches almost touching the ceiling, like fingers tapping a glass window. It was indescribably wide when seen from the ground level, though I guess still rather dainty for its height. It was odd to see it there, like it had been misplaced, so unlike anything around it, but at the same time it felt familiar. It didn't have a single leaf, nor bulbs blistering from it either, just a smooth, large, pale trunk. Nothing grew from it. It almost seemed a little lonely. When I come here just to relax, I often run my hands over the bark and sit down to pass my time, reading or writing with my back leaning against the trunk. But taking the path downwards to the lower floors, I didn't even get to see the white tree. The floors going down aren't considered part of the orchard. There are 20 in use, with the 19th and 20th containing our forges and furnaces. But it goes further below, much further. The way down started how a trip to anywhere else went. We formed a good-sized team, anywhere between 20 to 30 people, got our supplies, double-checked them, prepared our lights, and walked. Instead of heading towards the city's outskirts, however, the path for this led towards the depths of it, climbing down those stairs that seemed to go on forever. You need a light for the descent. My lantern was a fat candle held inside a glorified glass case, but its job was just keeping me from tripping around in the dark, and it had not failed me yet. First doorway stood right beyond where the last traces of sunlight reached. Large double doors made of black polished wood. Probably ebony. I won't swear by it though. The wood was heavy on the hinges, but didn't have a lock, and led me into a plain corridor. The air on the other side was dense, packed with humidity, and there was way too much space to call it a basement. The ground was covered by concrete tiles, and the old shopping carts creaked and grinded against it whenever someone in the group pulled one of them from the corner, forcing the rusty wheels to roll. The loads we transport back here were much larger than what my trips out of sticks used to entail, so those carts were more of a necessity than a convenience. But since said carts couldn't be brought upstairs, I cringed thinking about how many trips up and down it always took to carry everything. Even with the metallic noise of the cartwheels, our steps echoed against the floor and walls, repeating into the chamber 2, 3 times, and making it sound like there was someone else following just a little further than the eye could catch. The word catacombs crossed my mind. I tried to shoo it away. You can still turn back if you're scared. I'm fine. I was scared, yeah. It made sense on my first trip, though I didn't know why I still got scared afterwards, since there wasn't anything down here. Maybe it's just like the fear one gets when they watch a horror movie late at night and then need to go take a piss. You know nothing bad is in your house, but the trek to the bathroom still gives the creeps anyway. I placed my lantern on the little kid's seat of my cart and trudged on. There we go, short trip this time. The corridor ended in another black door, identical to the first. We've walked for maybe an hour. I went through last, indistinctly reaching for the switch to my left and turning the lights on. The room got flooded with fluorescent light, revealing a messy bedroom with white walls and simple furniture. I saw a bed, not done, and with random clothes and books on top, then shelves on the walls, a hanger, a cluttered desk, and a narrow cream-coloured door that I knew led to the living room. In place of the lustrous doorway we came through stood a wooden wardrobe. It's my room. No shit, Sherlock. Rhiannon almost flattened me against the wall when she swerved her own cart around me, swearing under her breath while trying to manoeuvre it into the cramped space. And in myself and my own cart, nobody else fit, and that was fine. Everyone else had piled into the corridor by then, and none of them were attached to anything around. There were no nostalgia for them to find here. I told them where the exit was, but the front door was locked from the outside. The likelihood of finding my keys here was as high as finding my phone, so Ree had to lockpick us out still. While waiting for her to do that, I pulled my old uni backpack from the wardrobe, shoved my laptop and any cables and adapters I may need inside it, and put the backpack on. Again, I couldn't see my phone, but there was no point in looking for it. I had it with me back when I died, and wherever my original body may be, it sure was not in my home. Sorry about your doorway. Nah, 'twas gonna happen sometime. She finished fiddling with the lock and I heard the door click open before she sagged against it a little. I should have been ready. I didn't know what to say to that and ended up not saying anything. Rhiannon's entryway led to an old little Irish pub stuck between a series of larger, newer buildings. And that pub had been closed for a while now, so not having access to it was new but not surprising. I wondered what happened to it, if it got condemned and demolished, or sold and renovated. But we weren't even in the right continent, and even less the right country to check it. There'll be a point when it'll happen to my place too. At some point the power will be cut. Maybe someone else will live there, change the furniture, or turn it into an office or some other shit, and I won't reach it anymore. Pandemonium's orchard corridor could take you anywhere. Well, anywhere you were connected to. Once it changed enough to no longer be the place it was for you, the passage disappeared along the place itself. Our group spilled outside the apartment, and I didn't see anyone when we took the elevators down to the ground floor and pulled our carts along. No one in the parking lot either, but it's rarer to see anyone anyway. Before I continue, there's something I need to clear out. When I told you guys of what happens on my side, I'm not writing everything day in and day out in an inspirational frenzy. My broken foot took almost 2 months to heal, for example. I've mentioned before that time in Gehenna flows differently, and the same applies between our cities and yours. Usually each minute to you stretches into an almost infinity to us, but even then time still passes, and that divergence fluctuates. I think that's why we can see people sometimes in those fractions of seconds when our times match. They're shadows and glimpses in the corner of our view, there for just a moment, then we blink and they're gone. I wonder if you see us the same way, ghosts and all that. Anyway, since we had used my entryway, I took the lead of the group and spent the following hours guiding them to the nearest supermarket, whatever useful stores I could recall, drugstores and then the mall. Rhiannon wasn't talking much, even when a couple of us slowed to walk up next to her. I asked if she'd rather stayed at her place, even after her entrance closed. She shook her head. Thing is, not much happens if you're on this side when your passage is gone. You just stay stuck. Stuck in a place that is there, but not really. Lucy mentioned it was possible to be stuck to people instead of places sometimes too, but that wasn't Rhiannon's case. What could she do when there was no more food in her little pub or flat? Live off cockroaches? Or haunting the rooms? Slamming open and closed all the cupboards and drawers in a panic, hoping to see a box of cereal, a bag of cookies she may have missed? Or maybe she'd have gone crazy from loneliness and claustrophobia, being locked in the same building for so long. Maybe she'd have tried to off herself sooner. Starvation took a long while to kill you after all. So no, she shook her head. It was better to be in hell when your doorway closed. We had to force the supermarket and stores and mall doors open too. But then we spread, going through every aisle and filling our carts, and reassembling at the food courts or right outside once we were done. We had an unspoken rule that whatever you could carry on yourself, like my backpack and anything inside it, was yours for personal use, and whatever else went in the carts was public domain, and never take too many of the same item, at least not the same item of the same brand. We weren't sure what or how things we took affected this other side, and it was better not to risk it, just in case. A small part of me felt grumpy about those rules, but I could understand why they existed, mainly the public usage one. I had to thank whoever hauled solar panels and wind turbines all the way up to Pandemonium for the fact about half of the city had electricity, and I was honestly thrilled to be increasing that percent a little bit with every trip I could. Besides that, while filling the carts, we tended to focus on things everyone needed regularly, or that were needed to repair or replace things everyone used regularly. My cart that time was filled with toolboxes, first aid kits and assorted generic usage things like paper and other office supplies. I could also see carts filled with bedding and towels and hygiene supplies, fabric rolls and sewing kits, kitchen stuff and gardening tools and such. The only one that looked different from that standard was the boss's cart, filled with things to use in our nursery areas. Colourful kiddie things, tissues and toys and pillows, colour pencils and art supplies, then a lot of yarn and varied strings and knitting material on top. It was like that every single trip, and on every single trip I had to suppress the urge to ask her if she was secretly a grandma. There was very little that's edible in our carts. Most food spoils on the passage between the door to here and the one leading back to Panda. Meat, dairy, eggs, anything that's fresh or refrigerated in general becomes a bundle of rot and mould before we return. Even flour goes bad, so we've long stopped dreaming of bringing food from this side back home. There were exceptions though: honey, salt, sugar, alcohol, and a few other things with stupidly long shelf life. Grains and seeds are a calculated risk. Carry back a large sack and a handful of the contents might survive the trip and be planted in the orchard. Even then they grow wrong, alien and faded like everything else. But we need them, strange or not. They become our own grains and our veggies and our flour. The rest we improvised. Did you know how blood can be a substitute for eggs in baking? Google it if you're doubting me. Gelatin can be extracted from bones too. Every dead body has a skeleton worth of it. We used anything we could. One had to keep in mind Pandemonium is a city, and a very large one, but not just one house or an apartment block. These trips we made to the outside helped, but any food we did bring was only a small percent of what a city consumed on a daily basis. Food's not like utensils and tools that can stack through time, and it wasn't feasible for everyone to go on trips every day either. But it was still better than before, better than eating human flesh and tree bark in the dark. There isn't much interesting to tell about these restock trips, other than the very place they happen and the mechanics involved to reach it. Well, it's when my internet time happens too, so there's that. I write during my free time and post during breaks here when we stop by somewhere with Wi-Fi. Having my laptop with me shortened that process, since I can type directly instead of writing somewhere and then transferring those writings into a computer. But it's more of a convenience for me than anything that would affect anyone else. About the expeditions themselves though, there wasn't much action happening in any that I've been present to. No encounters with creepy or deranged people, nor rabid mobs, usually no people at all. And since we move as a unit, and don't linger longer than we should because nobody wants to be stuck on the wrong side of the passage, there aren't any dramatic soap opera farewells either. Which do you think will fit Ava better? The most action we got that time was Lucy trying to distract a cranky, depressed Rhiannon by picking a bunch of baby outfits and shoving them in her face for her to pick, as if she wasn't going to take them all anyway. My boss is weird, okay? But whatever. Then we made our way back. I went to my room first, turned off the light switch and relit my lantern. The ebony door was there once again, lustrous wood glistening at the candlelight. I pushed my cart through, then everyone else did the same and reclosed the doors. Then we walked, pushing our carts and retaking our more usual order with Lucy at the front. And then there was Lucas. He stood in the middle of the stairway, high enough where there was still sunlight filtering in and at the sun at his back, and not moving a muscle. He looked like a shallow cardboard cutout. We only saw him when we had gathered the shopping carts at the base of the stairs and were starting to climb back up, bringing our goods. But I wonder for how long he had been standing there, staring at the darkness beyond his feet. I hadn't told you about Lucas's situation since the raid back at Dis, right? Well, he was brought to Pandemonium on the same day I was, by the same team, but he'd been difficult, picking fights with everyone and refusing to work. When he was brought to Panda, he had been knocked out cold and carried around like a sack of produce, and he didn't take it very well. I wondered if that was his first time being subdued since he joined Styx's council. Not that it mattered. The plan was to send him back with Donovan's group the next time we saw him, but we haven't had any trades with Styx people since then, and therefore Lucas was still around. "You're not supposed to be down here," Lucy pointed out to him. Lucas wasn't locked up, because just being an arsehole technically isn't a crime. But refusing to work meant he didn't have any perks. We did. He didn't have a ceiling to sleep under, and he wasn't allowed to join our trips below the orchard. "Where's she?" he hissed. He hadn't responded to Lucy's remark, just tilted his head forward, legs flexing like a cat getting ready to pounce. That's when I noticed his face. His lids were half-lidded with a vacant look, and his cheeks were wet like he'd been crying. "Where's she?" he repeated louder. "Who? Where is she?" "I heard somewhere that you're not supposed to wake up a sleepwalker, not even disturb them, that it might do more bad than good. But when you're confronted with a dude lunging downstairs towards you with murder in his gaze and yelling about someone you don't know, you don't really have a choice. We tackled him down as he came to us. I don't know whose hands reached him first, if mine or Rhee's or any of the others, but it was Lucy who slapped the shit out of him until he went limp. All the while he kept whimpering, calling for a name no one around here has, and crying that we didn't have the right to send her away, whoever she was. He did wake up after a while, dizzy and without a clue of what happened, but that was after we had already dragged his ass to a cell in the 15th floor and tossed him there. That part was unusual, but it didn't interfere with the rest of the trip. Once Lucas was in the cell, we went back downstairs and resumed bringing our stuff back up and finished our expedition, and the day went on as normal. I had dinner, went to bed and slept, and then I dreamed again. In my dream, a little girl met me every morning by the entrance to my father's place. She danced and sang little songs she invented, laughing bright like a flame that could lit the whole garden. We sat on the grass while she ate, and I weaved her hair into braids. A boy about her age peeked at us from beneath the shade of the trees, from where he watched us and whistled with blades of grass. I called him over and he hid his face, red up to his ears and funny as only children can be. They were odd and foolish, fragile and new, and I loved them so, the little siblings my father gave me. The boy, I have called him Adam, and the girl... I woke up with a migraine, and so dizzy I couldn't stand up. It was only after wrestling with my blankets and almost falling off my bed that I got conscious enough to realise I had to take deeper breaths and lie still until my sight would stop spinning. I thought whether I should include the thing with Lucas in this or not. I thought hard, because even if it sounds interesting, I still have no clue what it means about this city or about me. Because when I woke up, with my mind still hazy, my first instinct was to dart out my room, panicking and looking for the little girl from my dream. The same little girl Lucas had screamed and whimpered for. I needed to find Lilith. Don't forget, if you enjoyed that story, be sure to pop over to the author's Reddit profile and drop them a line, or even give them a glowing review. I'm sure they really would appreciate it. The link to their Reddit profile will be below in the description. Please be so kind as to throat punch the like button and smack the ass of the subscription button as well. And remember to tap the notification bell and then select all. That way you'll receive all notifications each time I upload a new video. Oh, and don't forget to share the video far and wide. This will all help with YouTube's algorithm and will help to promote this channel more. And don't forget to check out the merch store. The link will be in the description and also in the video thumbnail. And if you would like an honourable mention, send in a snapshot of yourself with your purchase and I'll feature it in one of the videos. I now have my very own subreddit community where you can submit any stories you've written. You can submit your stories or encounters either there or send them to cryptidsroost@gmail.com. If you wish to remain anonymous, that's fine with me. All the links are below. I also have a Facebook group, Twitter, Reddit, and you'll also find me on Discord. If you would like to support this channel and help make it grow, my PayPal is paypal.me/cryptidsroost. Again, that will also be below.